Tom. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Christina. Yeah, so first, great to hear about all of these different aspects and approaches to things. I'm going to kind of be quite brief, hopefully, and try to ask some of those difficult questions in a way, just to get things kicked off. So, but yeah, I mean, it's great that we've like Espacio Open is kind of representing a community aspect of and a kind of distributed production in practice approach, and then Tulip from a software perspective, HP from a hardware perspective, and then Martin really looking at it from like a very deep standards and academic perspective. So I don't feel like there's a huge amount for me to add. But briefly, you know, we launched Viral Response when all this kicked off as a way of kind of trying to create a dedicated platform for the open hardware designs for COVID-19. We've always been trying to work on distributed manufacturing for the last years at Wikifactory. And hence this kind of collaborations around Internet of Production and with Martin on the EU programs right now. We're working on multiple partnerships to, I guess, you know, so the big question for me is how do you really do distributed production and maintain quality? How do you do quality testing, quality assurance, particularly as products are being customized, hopefully to local needs? So this is kind of like, you know, I guess the elephant in the closet with regard to distributed production, which I think we all need to kind of think about how we can address really. Yeah, we're working on an open hardware fund with a number of different institutions and a few other attempts to basically prototype out that process. So how do you create a design which is well enough specified that people can produce it in different places? You know, some of the challenges there are that often the machine code that we actually print from or produce from is being generated on a desktop, isn't sitting in a cloud system. We're not collecting data with regard to that. Those particular designs and all those particular machine code and machines combinations. If we were collecting that data, then at least we've got would be some steps towards being able to ensure quality in a distributed way. So, you know, Martin's work on the DIN spec is beginning to address that. I would say by addressing what would be sufficient documentation and specifications of a product to be able to reproduce something. But the level of accuracy we can take that to is, you know, is going to be higher and higher as we start to move towards reproducible build code. Like one very technical point that I would like to make there is that we still operate when it comes to machine code on the basis of G code or similar, which means that we specify like how a 3D printer, a specific 3D printer's axis is going to move, and that's entirely dependent on the scale of the 3D printer and the instruction set of the 3D printer. I think it would be interesting from a standards-based approach if we could head towards specifying what has to happen to a workpiece rather than what movements a machine needs to make. And you know, the standards developed actually in the I think in the 90s for this as extensions of the STEP standards. There's a thing called STEP NC, which, you know, understandably for the time probably disappeared and died and was never really adopted. But I think that it's kind of getting to the time where that'll make sense, and where, you know, interesting to have, you know, a representative of HP here, because I think machine providers need to start thinking about how they can standardize that more and more. And if some machine providers take the initiative, then others will almost be forced to follow. And that will make a massive step, you know, towards being able to actually do reproducible builds, which in the end is what's necessary for distributed fabrication, as far as I understand it. Obviously, the advantage if we manage to do this is that we can get to like a circular economy or at least it facilitates part of what's necessary for a circular economy. And if we can start to be able to adapt designs, I think the other thing that would be extremely helpful is if we started to specify designs in terms of the requirements of components and materials, rather than in terms of the exact components and materials, because then it should be possible to, in a more kind of verifiable way, swap out a particular material that's used to make a product in a local context, and have a good at least chance of it working as like one step in the right direction. So yeah, I mean, yeah, throwing back the question to you guys, given that we're also talking about short term here, what are the, for me, the question is like, what are the things we can do in the short term to make distributed fabrication possible in a reliable way? Of course, we're dealing with like high audit requirements when we're talking about medical devices. I believe personally that we're going to move towards thinking beyond medical devices and PPE and much more about product innovation at this point, and the new products that we can create to upgrade the built environment and reduce the chances of transmission. But I'll leave it at that and look forward to discussing with everyone.